All right, thank you very much, Adam. I believe we have a couple of slides here that we're going to talk about. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, or actually for the entire demo, what we're going to do is actually I'm going to walk you through the installation and the configuration of the Intranet-Extranet. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about during the installation that are a little bit different, since we're actually going to be installing this in firewall mode, is there's an extra step for firewalled that needs to be set up. Some of the things, of course, we do have to have a one-way communication through the firewall. So even though we say firewalled, it does have to have an open port going in one direction. Because if the firewall, of course, is completely closed, then nothing's getting through. Okay, so that has to be done by your infrastructure team. The second thing is we're installing an operating system feature on the farm outside of the firewall called bit server extensions. And what that's going to let us do is actually upload and download from that server without having to have the other server communicate back, okay? And we'll talk about that in the install stage. And then during the configuration stage, which is next, the one thing that is going to be a little bit different than a normal setup for Intranet-Extranet is we're going to see that you're going to need a passphrase put in for your web application. So what we've done is we've added an extra level of security with this passphrase that a system administrator can, because everybody in your organization, well, not everybody, but a lot of people might know that central admin password, right? So that would let you set up replication with anything. But with the passphrase, that gives the person actually setting up the ability to kind of mask that functionality. So unless you know the actual passphrase, even though you have the administrative password, you're not going to be able to set up a connection to a destination. And that has to be used for firewall mode as well. So that has to be configured. The one other thing, I guess, to mention in configuring this is really the configuration steps change a little bit. So I'm going to highlight as we go through what would be different from a normal setup to a firewall in Intranet-Extranet. Okay. All right. So I believe, without further ado, we are going to jump into that configuration and installation. So give me 1 minute while I get that ready. And let me launch this. Okay. Move this back. All right. So here we go. Let me stop sharing this screen, and we'll share my other screen. And hopefully now you're seeing, where did that go? I don't know why that didn't go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to hit play here, and I may have to pause this as I go. What we're going to see here is the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to our website, and we're going to, again, the Replicator, but we're going to look at documentation this time. And in the documentation, one of the guides that you want to read is actually the firewalled replication mode. Okay, and that's going to bring up, of course, the document that we need. And we're going to go take a look at the prerequisites, because there is some steps for Windows Server 2008 R2, which is what I'm going to be installing on today. So we'll scroll down to that section, and we'll see that what it mentions is that for each web application that's outside of the firewall, we need to install this bits.is server extension. So we're going to go through that install step, okay? And for each web application server outside the firewall on 2008 R2, we also have to install a hotfix, because if you don't, it's actually going to cause an error whenever you double click on the bits options in through IIS. So this has to be installed as well. Okay. All right. So I'll just skip ahead a little bit here. Okay. Sorry about this. Go back to here. Okay. So what we're going to do is you'll see here that I've already, let me get that back to the right spot. And what I've done is I've already actually downloaded the software, and I've already downloaded the service pack, or the service pack needed as well, the hotfix. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our control panel, and this is where you're going to find, the turn Windows features on or off. We're going to click on this. And once that comes up, we're going to click on features over here on the left. And then we're just going to click on add features. And then under here, you're going to see background intelligent transfer service. You want to open this up. And underneath this, we're going to check off IIS server extensions. Okay. Then we're going to hit next. And then we're going to do an install. And that's going to just install those bit server extensions. So that's what we need. That's a prerequisite of firewall that has to be installed. And it's only on the outside farm. So whenever I'm talking outside server farm, I'm talking the one that's got the one that's outside of the firewall. Doesn't matter if that's your intranet or your extranet. It's the one outside of the firewall. Okay. So that's it. That's the simple first step. Now all you need to do after that is install Replicator, and that's as simple as downloading the software and then running the installation. Okay, so we'll do that now. So I've already unzipped those files in the package. We're going to go underneath here, and we're just going to run the install. And this is the same as if we weren't installing in firewall mode. So it's a simple, we're going to walk through this installation really quickly. So I'll just click yes here and wait for our welcome screen. And once that welcome screen comes up, it's the same as we saw last week. We're going to click on Install Replicator. All right, let's go ahead and install. And then our welcome screen is going to come up. And we're going to click Next to begin the installation. All right. And we accept the terms. I'm going to use the default directory. I'm going to click Next again, and then we're going to do the install. And at the end of this, it's just going to pop up that it's completed, and then we're going to launch our configuration wizard. So you notice up to this point that there's nothing different really in the install other than we had to install that one other feature on the operating system. And really, there is nothing out of the ordinary for the install in an Intranet-Extranet or any other install. Okay. So we apply our central admin app pool credentials here, and then we're going to click Next again. All right, once this is done, we'll get our, these are just the prerequisite checks. Everything will come back green or yellow if there's any warnings. And then we're just going to hit Next. And we're going to install our first engine on the farm. Okay. And again, you have to supply your license key. If you're online, then you just click Activate. If not, if you're offline, all you have to do is click the offline radio button and then follow those simple steps. It's very straightforward. Okay. All right, so we're going to hit Activate, and then we're going to get a green checkbox here again, and then we're going to be able to go Next. All right, and I do already have a shared network folder available because we have installed here previously. So I do have one available, so I'm just going to hit Next. This is the default path Hit next again. I'm not going to enable this right now because there is another step that needs to be done for firewall. Click next. And then we'll choose to start services and install the solutions. And we're going to go ahead and start. All right, so that's going to finish off. And then we're going to hit next again. So this was one farm. So this was my Sport-2013C farm. And this one is complete. So we're going to click finish. So I mean, the next step is we just have to do the install on the other farm. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now, but I'm not going to walk through all of those steps. I'm just going to go to my other farm and run that. And then we're going to see that screen complete here. So here we are, just switching over to this server. And through the magic of video editing, we are done. All right, so let's go ahead and click next. So the install is done now on both farms. And you'll notice on this farm, so on my farm inside the firewall, I didn't have to do that step of installing those bit server extensions. That only has to happen on the server outside the firewall, okay? So now I'm going to go through some of the places where our pieces are installed. So let's start off with doing that. First thing we're going to take a look at is our where we actually installed the software. And that starts under the C drive, then program files, Metalogix, Replicator, WSS4. This path can change. This is where all our DLLs are. This is where the service lives. And one file to take note of that we'll be talking about on day 3 in detail is our configuration file. So there is some settings in here that you'll want to be familiar with. One of them is being able to turn on and off the trace. Okay, so that's our install directory. And that's basically where all our DLLs are. Other places we install files are under the, again, program files directory, common files, Microsoft shared, web server extensions, and then 15. Under the template, then under the admin directory, we're going to have some files. And these are files, these are the screens that you're going to actually see in central admin. You know, these are the ASPX files. All right. We also install some files in the layouts folder, and same thing under Synergy, Replicator, and these are the files that that we use in our GUI. Okay. Now, the one other place that you're going to find some Replicator files in the Hive is under the Features folder. Okay. And you'll find a Metalogix Replicator event receiver, and then you're going to find also a Synergy folder in the features. Okay, so those two will be in here. All right. And that's it. That's all we install into that features directory. All right. So next, one of the places that we do some install. Let me try and speed this up a little bit. Is under the Windows folder, and in Assembly, we install a couple files in here. And you'll find one named Metalogix, that's our licensing. And then lower down, we're going to find a Synergy DLL in here as well. Okay. And that's it. That's our features. That's our features for our features DLL. Okay. And that's it for that. And then one other thing that we're going to take a look at is under our services. And these are the two Windows services that we install. Okay. So Metalogix Replicator service. That's basically the brains behind the operation. That's the one that does all the polling of the databases to see if there's events to be packaged, and if we have to notify the transport service to then notify the destination that things are ready to be to be transported. So those are the two Windows services. And then now that we've seen all these pieces, we're actually going to go into our central admin. And let me just speed that up a little. Oh, there we go. We're just going to quit all that since we're done the install, and we're actually going to go into central admin. Okay, I'm just going to refresh these two pages. And so once the install is done, just like last week, we'll see our options available in application management. And you'll notice that I've labeled this intranet and the other side extranet. So some of the things that we install here, let's go like under system settings and under manage farm solutions. These are the solutions that we deploy to the web apps. You'll see there's a CA solution, a Replicator solution, and a solution UI. The CA solution is basically all of our options up at the central admin level. The Replicator solutions is everything we'll see at the website, and also all of the common DLLs that we deploy in the actual in IAS for Replicator to run. And the solution UI is really, the parts of the UI. Right now, you'll see that by default, we only deploy to the central admin web app to start off with. That's normal. All three of these need to be deployed to central admin for Replicator configuration to take place. Once we enable a web app, the bottom two, so the solution and the solution UI, they'll get deployed to every web application that you enable Replicator on. All right, so you want to check in here to make sure, the status, everything's deployed, no errors. That way you know that replication should work. Okay, so let's go back to application management. And of course, first step is we're going to, excuse me, move this ahead a little bit here. First step is going to be configuring the web application. Okay, so we're going to change that to yes. So really from last week, there's really nothing different here. We've chosen our web application. We're going to click yes. We'll talk a little bit here about, you'll see some options like enable domain remapping. If for whatever reason the Intranet-Extranet are on two different domains, it's quite possible, you'd probably want to enable domain remapping. You also have the ability to enable user remapping. So if the two domains have no users in common, you can actually create a user remapping table so that they'll have proper users when it ends up on the destination. You also can, retain completed packages for 1 day as the default. We also keep a log of everything we replicated by default for 5 days. You can change that. And you can start a rolling archive if you want to keep a longer history of that. Okay. But by default, we'll get 5 days. Now, the one thing you do want to do in firewall mode is under advanced settings, you have to set a passphrase. Okay. And it's called, and this is just as the tip on the left here says, this is just to further secure that connection from, your intranet to your extranet. And I'm just going to enter a simple one here. I'm just using Metalogix, for example. I'll go ahead and enter that. Come on. There we go. All right, and then on what I'm going to do is I'm going to click OK. That'll enable this web application. And again, like we were talking about last week, this is not, once this is enabled, that doesn't mean Replicator is replicating anything yet. All right, so that's going to finish. And what we're going to do after this is we're going to go to our extranet. Okay, and we're going to actually do the same step. So over to our extranet, and then we're going to enable the web application. And what we're going to do is I'm going to basically, select the same options here. We'll click yes. It's the same for domain remapping here. You'd want to set that the same if domain remapping is going to be on. And then what I'm going to do here is under advanced settings, I'm going to actually enter in a different passphrase so that you can see what happens whenever you actually try to set up replication with an extranet portal that doesn't have the same passphrase as what you have. So I'll click OK, and that'll be done. All right. So one thing we'll talk about here as well is I'm going to scroll down here and pick replication groups. And I'm back on my extranet, or my intranet, sorry. I'm going to click on my groups here. Now, by default, we have one group out of the box, which is worldwide connections. Okay. What you can use groups for is if you have multiple farms that you're replicating with, this is a great way to group them via what the job is going to be for these farms. So for example, if you had several farms that you wanted to do a one-way replication with, you could create a group called one-way and add in the connections that you're going to do the one-way replication with. Then whenever you're creating map families, it's easy to just pick that one-way group and you know the two connections that you have in there. Okay. In our case, since we're talking about two farms, I'm just going to use the default group that we have here because there's no real need to create that extra group. So we're going to go back to application management, and we're just going to click on our replication connection, and we're going to create a connection. All right, so I'm going to just remove this one that I've already created here, and we're going to add a brand new one in. All right, so I'll add a new connection. I'm going to give it a friendly name, which again is just, in this case, we're going to call it extranet. And we have to give it, there is a couple of transports available here. The one we're going to be using is bits, but you also have available to you a couple other modes. Offline, that's if there's no physical connection between the two. And we have this gateway in here, which has to do with Lotus Notes. But we're going to use bits, which is our out-of-the-box transport, since these will have a connection. And you can also choose two protocols. It's either HTTP or HTTPS. Those are the two that you have available to you. Okay, so now we got to give the target web application name as well as the domain. If the port is different, you need to change the port, of course, and then the password. And we're going to test this. And I'm going to put in the wrong passphrase here a couple of times. And what you're going to see, I'm going to hit test connection. The test connection is actually going to work. So what it's doing, it's not actually testing that passphrase at that point, okay? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to just change that passphrase again. And you see the test connection is still going to work. That's just telling you that it's actually working, okay? So it's not until we actually get down to the part where we're going to actually save the connection that you're going to see the message that you know you've entered the wrong passphrase. So let's go ahead and click on OK. And we're going to see the message pop up. So, target replication passphrase mismatch. Do you want to update this connection anyway? No, in this case we don't, because we won't be able to replicate to that connection if we don't. So we're going to go ahead and click cancel. I'm going to actually go to my destination now and change that passphrase to the proper passphrase. And then I'm going to finish off my connection. So this shows you that you can't just, even if you have the administrator password, as long as you have these passphrases set up, you can protect your Intranet-Extranet. Okay, so that'll finish off. Then we're going to go back to the connection and just click on OK. Oh, and I'm going to retype my password here just to make sure I have it right. And we're going to click OK. And those are both complete. I'll have my complete connection. And then the next phase really is creating a map. But one thing actually we're going to take a look at that's a little bit different with firewall mode. Firewall mode is going to create the connection for you on the destination. So we're going to go take a look at that. So if we go to the application management on the extranet, we should see that a connection has been added automatically by this side, because this side we're assuming is going to be doing all the work. So at this point, it should be configuring the other side. But I've intentionally left something out so that I can demonstrate something here as well. Let's just move this along a little bit. Okay. So we're going to go to connections on the other side, and you see there's no connection. So I've forgotten a step here as well, intentionally. So we're going to go back to our connection on the other side. And I'm going to flip a switch that I should have done the first time. And that's in the bits transport settings. So if I scroll down, I'm going to open bits transport settings, and you'll see that there's a few modes here. So since this is firewall mode, I need to pick firewall. Okay. Default is on demand, which is the normal way replication is out of the box. But if I click firewall and I click OK, now that this saves, we're going to go over to the destination, refresh, and we're going to see that we have a connection that was created by the source web application, so our intranet web application, okay? And this needs to be here for Replicator, because this side, the extranet, not going to be doing basically anything other than processing the package once the inbound side has pushed the package to there and has notified the other side that it's ready to complete the package. So really, Replicator behaves the same way, even though we're in firewall mode. The only difference here in firewall mode is the way that the notifications are being done to that other side and the way that the packages are being transferred. For all intents and purposes, though, Replicator is working exactly the same way as it would normally, okay? All right, so the last thing we have to do is actually create a map family. So again, up until this point, nothing's replicating. We just have everything set up and we're ready to go. So if we go now to application management, we're going to click on manage map families, and we'll create a new map family. And we're just going to call this extranet. And then again, once we get down to the managing the scope, you have three options: web application, site collection, and website. So you have the ability to actually create, if you only need one website, you can create a website scoped web application and then type in the URL just for that website, and you can just choose to replicate that. But in my case, it's going to be the entire thing. It's going to be a whole web application. One interesting setting is the events per package. If you're in an environment where you're going to be doing a lot of bulk operations or a lot of bulk queuing, you may want to actually increase your events per package. This will give you a better chance of getting more information in a packet. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get 25 events. It's just if there is 25 events available at the time that we do packaging, you'll get 25. So don't expect to see 25 in every package during day-to-day traffic. And for this, I would recommend, to not try to go higher than about 100 events per package, because they start to get quite large. Okay. And here's where you'd select your group if you had any different groups. And there's also a schedule. So this is where you can decide if you want to replicate immediately. You can replicate every 5 minutes if you wanted to, a daily or a weekly schedule, something monthly or even manually. Okay. For us, we're going to do immediate. And you're going to see over here on the left that we actually have a timestamp and who modified that map. In an environment where you have lots of administrators, that's good information to know, because you can find out who last modified the map. If things start acting differently, you can see if somebody actually went in and made a change they shouldn't have. So we'll click on OK. And that's going to get us to our second screen here, because this is a two-part process. okay? So in this case, we were talking a little bit about last week about all of these advanced settings. So in our Intranet-Extranet scenario, chances are things are not exactly the same side to side, right? So I may only want specific events in this case. So in the case of Intranet-Extranet, and I'll come back in here in a minute actually and set these. And you'll also have your selection of connections here if you have more than one connection in your group. It only shows the connections that's in your group, and you can enable and disable those. So for now, I'm going to click OK, and then we're going to come back in and we'll talk a little bit about that custom field. Actually, we'll talk about it now. So custom, what that allows you to do is if you wanted to push a list to a different point in the hierarchy on the destination, you can do that. So if I have a site collection on this side that I want to replicate down to a subsite level on the other side, I can use what's called custom binding. And when that's enabled, I can check that custom flag, and I can actually specify a different URL here, and it'll replicate down to that level. Okay. So for now, we're going to click OK. We're going to create this map. Like I was mentioning before, if you ever want to change what you're actually replicating event-wise, you can come back in, you could go into View Maps, and I'm going to open this back up, and I'm going to change my events because this is an Intranet-Extranet. So I don't want site collection events, no website events, no look and feel. So I want list add, probably list ads, and maybe everything actually in the list items. So actually, I really just want the list item data, okay? And it's up to you on whether or not you want to do look and feel. Chances are, and we'll open up the look and feel box here, and we'll see that there's a bunch of events here that you can decide, but chances are in an Intranet-Extranet, if you're sharing with a partner, that they may not want you to add views, none of the site navigation updates, site master pages, title updates, any of that stuff. So they may not actually want any of that information. So I'm going to clear all of that as well. And that's the simplest thing that you can do between Intranet-Extranet to control some of the traffic that's going to be going back and forth to Intranet-Extranet. So I'm going to save that. And then we're going to take a look at some of the other things you can do. There's also rules available on these maps. And what rules allow you to do, we're not going to create a rule today, but what rules allow you to do is actually, based on metadata, you can actually define, based on a column, a classic example is security, for example. If you have some items that are top secret, or releasable to all, you could key off of that field and decide if that traffic is going to be allowed out of the building, so to speak. So I mean, it's as simple as clicking on, add rule. We type in the different criteria that you want to have for your rule, and then that's then applied to all the content for that particular map. Okay. So you have rules available to you. There is some more advanced rules that you can do, and we'll cover that later on. But what we'll do, we'll take a look at now as well is I'm going to have to expand my map hierarchy here to get down to the web level and website. So if there's only one list in your Intranet-Extranet that you want to be able to replicate, you have that option as well. So I can deselect all my lists. If it's only my document library that I want to replicate for this particular site, then that's all I need to do. So you have that option as well. Okay. In our case, I'm going to just select all here and save. Okay. So some of the other things that you can do, and let's talk about map families. Whenever you're thinking about map families, the only real thing to remember is you can have as many map families as you want. You don't have to be limited to one map family. So if you want to do things differently on one map family versus another, you just create another map family, and you configure that map family to do what you need to do for the website or the site collection. The only words of advice that we have for you is we want to make sure that you're not doing the same thing on two maps. So if, for example, on one map, you want to have one map that does just look and feel, you want to make sure that your look and feel events are only selected on that map, not on the other map.